Chapter 13 I Like Dogs. IRS. The full name is Internal Revenue Service, the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, which is part of the Treasury Department. This department is awesome, very awesome. As we all know, there are 3 things that must not be done on Earth, that is, prohibiting alcohol in Russia, selling drugs in China, and evading taxes in the United States. There is a saying in the United States, only death and paying taxes are eternal in the world. In the great American empire, whether it is illegal income or legal income, even if it is a hoax, you have to pay taxes to the IRS. IRS, no matter what you do, I can't miss a penny. Yep, that's how they hang. The IRS is ubiquitous in the U.S. empire and is known as the most feared government department in the U.S. empire. Its deterrent power far exceeds the Department of Defense and the CIA. The origin of the IRS can be traced back to the period of the American Civil War. At that time, the North and the South were fighting hard, and the military expenditure was very tight. As soon as President Lincoln saw that he could not do it, and he had no money to fight a war, he immediately asked the tax department to work overtime to collect taxes so that he could use it to subsidize the military. The hard-pressed tax department went to collect taxes, but was chased away with a gun pointed at the head, so, under the authorization of Lincoln, the IRS responded to the second set of broadcasts for middle school students in the country. It was born in response to the call of the times. The IRS has the right to collect taxes by armed force. In the face of uncooperative elements who violently resist taxes, they say, hee, you have a gun, and I still have a gun. The tax collection was successful. Lincoln received a large amount of military spending, and won the final victory of the war. So, do you think that the victory of the Civil War was because a large number of black slaves replenished the troops? Lincoln was assassinated because Southern slave owners were unwilling to fail? Is it caused by class interests and political contradictions? Oh, you are still too young. Since then, the IRS has developed an excellent tax collection style. Of the 110,000 staff members, 40,000 are armed forces, well equipped, and their combat effectiveness is comparable to that of the Army Mountain Division. In the U.S. Empire, the largest armed organization is the U.S. Imperial Army, the second is the Coast Guard, and the third is the IRS. In the film and television works of the U.S. Emperor, the FBI is often used as a negative teaching material to support the background board of the hero's tale, but no film has ever dared to ridicule the IRS, which is their deterrent power. Holding the note given by the cross from the former IRS member, Russell knocked off $2,000 and set off with confidence. The cross blows Mr. Smith's arrogance so high, there is no doubt that the proper boss, even if it is not as powerful as the cross, is definitely not far behind. So Russell rented a Ford F-150 in the used car market and headed to the next state. Because Mr. Smith's phone was off, Russell had to go straight to the road to prevent unnecessary misunderstandings, and Cross wrote a handwritten letter with a threaded slug attached, which was a secret code between 2 middle-aged men. The city where Mr. Smith lived was a short distance away, and Russell drove southwest, dawdling on the highway for a day, before arriving at his destination at night. Even if he has proficient driving skills, it can't offset the poor performance of the used Ford. Perhaps because of the lack of maintenance for a long time, the Ford's tires have poor grip. There are many car rental markets in Dame. Russell found a rental company that was related to Gray. It said that it was renting, but in fact it was selling directly. Regardless of the identity of the renter, the buyer will not seek complicated procedures, pay with one hand, and deliver the goods with one hand, which is neat and no nonsense. Almost all of these second-hand cars sold cheaply have unknown origins, and they have changed hands many times, so the real source cannot be investigated. For example, the Ford under Russell's ass, if the car is a man's lover, it is already an experienced bus. On the way, Russell came across a police officer who was blocking the road. With the help of the driver's license book obtained from the gangster and the yellow face that looked like a model in the eyes of Europeans and Americans, he easily passed the border. The place where Mr. Smith lived was a bit remote. Russell found it only under the guidance of a group of kind-hearted gangsters. The gangsters were good-hearted, and they gave Russell the change in their pockets while crying and shouting. The upright Russell categorically refused. When the punks saw that he was unwilling, they howled and cried on the spot. Russell had no choice but to accept it. It is not a wise choice to knock on the door of the killer in the middle of the night. Russell had planned to explore first, and the next day he brought some fruit to the door. The Cross gave him $2,000 and asked him to buy some gifts. Russell thought that the old beauty was too tacky, and it was enough to buy some fruit. Ford drove past Mr. Smith's address, an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. The mottled walls were full of bricks. It was estimated that only homeless people lived here. Russell found that the situation was a bit wrong, not that the sanitary environment was poor. Since Mr. Smith is a killer, he must be cautious in character, and there is nothing wrong with living in the outskirts of the city. But what the hell are the dozen or so black Buick business cars in front of the building, and Mr. Smith is throwing a lingerie party? Underwear parties are impossible. A few guys in suits and ties are guarding outside the building, wearing sunglasses at night, either blind or selling insurance. More likely to sell insurance considering they don't have a guide dog. Apparently, Mr. Smith's situation is not very good. He has been blocked. A couple of suits and ties also spotted the sneaky Ford. Two of them approached Russell, the rest put their hands inside their suits, all with guns. Bang! 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 Continuous gunshots came from the building. Russell scolded secretly, stepped on the accelerator and accelerated away. Seeing this, the two suits and ties did not choose to pursue and returned to their respective positions. Russell didn't leave, he circled and parked Ford in the shadow of a big tree. The gunshots upstairs continued, from the constant gunshots at the beginning to now intermittently. If it wasn't for the enemy flogging the corpse, it meant that Smith had just staged a massacre. A few suits and ties stopped guarding the door, took out pistols from their arms and rushed in, followed by loud gunshots. Russell didn't want to rush over to help. He counted the number of business Buicks. If all the seats were full, the number of enemies would be quite terrifying. He didn't want to die for a stranger who had never met. The gunshots in the building were dense again, as if it was a pause after the climax, and the gunshots stopped instantly. Two figures ran out of the building, a man and a woman. The man was wearing a black leather trench coat, and the woman was wrapped tightly, and they couldn't see their faces under the night. When the two ran into the alley next to them, more than 20 men in suits and ties with guns ran out of the building, leading the short man to curse and ran into the alley. Russell touched his chin. Maybe he could do a back kill. The man who ran away was Smith, a man with a cold and mysterious appearance. No one knew his past, but he had a face of "I have a story." Smith has been very bad these 2 days. Because of his soft heart, he was accidentally involved in a conspiracy. He's not a kind-hearted person, and he doesn't want to be a hero, but when he sees a pregnant woman in 8 months of pregnancy being hunted down by a group of gunmen, he instinctively lends a helping hand. In a chaotic shootout, the pregnant woman was frightened to give birth prematurely, and she herself was not spared, leaving only the newborn baby. Smith thought that the incident would end because of the woman's death, and he had no intention of continuing to get involved, but then he discovered that the other party's target was not a woman, but a newborn baby. Unable to give up the baby to die, he once again extended a helping hand and found his concubine for help. Newborns need breast milk, which Smith doesn't have, but Quintana, her prostitute concubine, who dragged the hapless prostitute into the water and brought them back to their suburban residence together. The next step is the enemy's door. Smith dominated the pretense scene of the audience. With his precise marksmanship, he fought against 50 gunmen by himself, and broke through the siege with his concubine and the baby. Hiding in the dark alley, Smith thought he would get rid of the enemy, but he never thought that the short leader was ready and trotted over with a hound. The ferocious barking of dogs echoed in the alley, accompanied by the sound of hurried footsteps, giving a feeling of suffocation in the gloomy alley. Kill that dog, kill that dog. Quintana said in a low voice they couldn't escape the pursuit without killing the dog. Smith refused without thinking, no, I like dogs. Quintana was stunned, I have no problem with your love for dogs, but dogs don't know. Street Diary. The editor told me, don't stay up late to code, and take care of your body. In this case, when I hit the street, at least I can go to work on the floor tiles. Previous chapter. Content. Next chapter.